last night, and I don't know, I guess this is more of a question to confirm or deny, but it seemed last night watching the gig, you were really focusing on, and through many of the songs, using your crash cymbal as a ride, which a lot of drummers do, a lot of drummers don't, but over the years now, 15, 16 years of watching you carefully, I haven't seen that much of that kind of action. I was wondering, have you noticed that? Has it just been kind of an organic change or something more that you're focusing on this year? And then why? Why would you focus on it?
Well, good question. I don't have as many cymbals up there. I have a really good relationship with the Sabian Cymbal Company. I'm endorsed by them, and through the years, you know, I go there about once a year and I load up the cymbals and take them home. And I usually resort back to one or two cymbals that I really like, you know, and I've just more or less adopted that formula that less is more at this point. And the cymbals, those are my cymbals up there, and both the ride cymbal and the crash cymbals. The crash cymbal is actually a signature cymbal of mine that they have the formula in a vault at the Sabian Cymbal Company. It's an extension of an HHX, that's a series. The original HHX were a little thinner, and I wanted something just a little thicker because they were kind of bending, and they made this for me. And it's got such a marvelous sound. It has kind of a vintage, and you can crash on it or ride on it, and that's the crash over here. And the ride cymbal, that's one of my favorite ride cymbals. And you know, part of it's, I guess, through the years, I've been getting less and less room on stage, so I've been getting squeezed out by other hand drums or whatever, you know.
Because years ago, like the mid-'90s when you guys started out, you sometimes were carrying 7/8 cymbals on stage.
I was, yes, you know. And just, you know, you can do a lot with two cymbals. A lot of cymbals, especially kids look at the drum sets, well, that guy can't be that good, he doesn't have many cymbals, you know. That happens all the time, you know. And, you know, just, I guess possibly, getting a little older, I just don't need all that, you know. That's why I even like the smaller drum kit. I used to have a lot more toms. I'm using a very basic kit, snare drum, one mounted tom, one floor tom, and bass, and that's about as basic as you can get. And to me, it's more challenging and more fun to make more music out of less drums and cymbals, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I have basically just two cymbals, hi-hat. I do have the China type over here, just for effect. The basic small drum set, and I like to load up on the hand drums and the chili pot and the timbali over on the left side. You know. Yeah, sure.
Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Patrick.
I find when I'm playing drums, I constantly get in my head, and as soon as I do that, I screw up the tempo or my hands go wrong. I struggle to not get in my head. And when I'm not, I play pretty well, and I kind of like trance out and play. And how do you avoid
Well,
doing
that's the whole thing. You can't think. You know, thinking will ruin rock and roll. As soon as you start to think, you need to just channel somehow, you know. I think that's what you're trying to tell me.
But I'm trying to learn too. I'm not that good, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about how I'm doing better.
Well, a good strategy is before you even sit down on the drum set to try to execute whatever you're trying to do, really plan it in your head, or devise exercises individually with your individual limbs to try to get some independent coordination going on. But again, a big rule of thumb is the more you think about it, the more it's not going to work, you know. But good luck in drumming. Yeah.
If anybody has a question, just raise your hand. I'll bring the mic to you. In the meantime, Matt, I wanted to ask you, you're left-handed, are you not?
I am left-handed, but I play a right-handed drum kit.
And how on earth did you manage that?
Because I'm right-footed. So my body runs like this, and it's down like that. Now you have Ian Pace from Deep Purple is a left-handed drummer. He sits completely backwards, and so yeah. Now that's hard. I can play open-handed on a right-handed drummer's kit, but left-handed, I bat left-handed. I brush my teeth with my right hand.
Balanced. Good.
I kick a ball with my right foot. So yeah, it's kind of screwy, but
Ambidexterity helps drumming.
yeah, you know, Ringo Starr is left-handed too, and there's a footnote in his career. He always said he could never do a roll around the drum kit because he always starts with his left hand. So he's got to do a double beat to get back, whereas a right-handed drummer would go
Lead with the right.
yeah, and when you start with your left hand, so but that's what a paradiddle is. And a paradiddle was kind of invented to get around the drum kit. And a paradiddle is left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right. And when you're trying to get around a drum set,
Do some paradiddles.
you do that with a paradiddle. And it's just one way to just put an extra 2 beats and then move on. And it's very useful for getting around the drum kit. But at the same time, I've seen guys completely go around this way or that way without using a double sticking either. But there's so many different stickings you can use to get around the drum kit. That's what happens.
Effortless.
It went in your drink. Oh, jeez.
So a completely non-technical question, because I know nothing about drumming, so I love watching you. As walking through life as a man with practically perfect rhythmic nature, does the randomness of nature drive you absolutely insane? Do you always feel you have to make everything line up as you walk through life?
No.
Really? I would think you would. Like when you walk, you would always walk in 3, 4 times.
Well, it's true. I'm always, when I walk, I'm always counting. I always count steps. I mean, it's just a natural thing. If I walk up those steps, I'll go 1, 2, 3.
All right, so
And that doesn't bother me too much. But again, I try to completely throw everything out of my mind when I play. Everything that I've ever learned or thought I'd learned, I throw it out the window. And clear the brain and just, again, don't think about what you're doing. I mean, that's the best way to do it, if you can get to that point. And that's kind of called being in the zone. Athletes do it all the time, You get a runner's high. You ever done some exercise and gotten so high that all these thoughts come into your head and you're free, And that's kind of what drumming is to me, just it's freedom. But I'm not really that anal up there on the drum kit, I'm not always. Basically, the most important thing is to remember song structure, and that's really what I'm concentrating on stage,
Well, Matt, listen, since you're just finished up the Gov't Mule record and POA's just starting, talk to us a little about your approach to the studio. I mean, we see the gigs, and we know you get a set list beforehand, and obviously you know the songs, and you kind of maybe think about how that's going to unfold in the evening. But when you go into the studio, creating a new song, how much, like when you talk to Warren and the other guys, like who decides the tempo and how much influence do you have and how does that work?
It's a good question. Through the years, it's changed. Let's even go back to the 50s, 1950s, when the first rock and roll was being played mainly by jazz musicians, because rock and roll really wasn't invented yet, And they approached the first rock and roll songs usually had a swing to them, Johnny B. Good, like Chuck Berry, one of the architects of rock and roll. Unless you ask Little Richard, he'll tell you that he was. But we're down in Louisiana, through Orleans. That's how it started. It had a swing to it, a shuffle. That's what it turned into, a straight 8 type. So. My point is, at that time, rock and roll was being made really quickly, and musicians would go in, they'd be hired for an hour, and they'd come up with a song, and then you'd hear it on the radio. Later on, with the advent of the big studios and big business, Wall Street money going into the record companies, and record companies basically being a bank, and you go in the studio and you would demo your songs, and you would go record them, and people would spend months and months in the studio. Big waste of money. But that's how it was, especially during the 70s and 80s. You'd spend time with a producer. The producer would look at your songs. He would dictate a lot of times the tempo, the structure of the songs, and you demo the songs, and then you go back and re-record the songs for the final take, which to me kind of ruins it, because that philosophy is kind of outdated now. It's different. With everybody having a home studio, it basically has put big studios out of business, and definitely put record companies out of business. I mean, it doesn't exist anymore. And they say the internet killed the music business, and it pretty much did.
And I guess case in point on that is like the Bo Diddley beat, which was so iconic for him. Didn't need a year in the studio to come up with that.
No, but while you're on the Bo Diddley beat, you can't copy a beat. Once Bo Diddley came up with that beat, there are a lot of people who came up with songs with that beat, and he actually tried to sue them to, it's like sampling. If somebody uses something from your song, you got to pay them. The Allman Brothers, back where it all began, uses the Bo Diddley beat. So anybody can use that beat. It doesn't belong to him, although he invented it. Well, let's get back to how we record, and that was your question. So it's changed through the years. They used to, when there was a lot of money going around, you'd spend 6 months in the studio just anally, polishing your turd, basically. And I like the approach where the first thoughts are the best. What comes in your mind first is usually the best. You spend so much time trying to polish that initial thought, and then you always go back. Well, I like the first take. After you've done 300 takes, you go back to the first take, and why didn't we take that one? So I like things to be real quick, and the POA pretty much goes in, and there's 3 of us, and we just really start from the floor and build it up. Somebody come in with an idea. It could be a piano line, a guitar line, a vocal line, or a lyric, and we'll just spend time working on that, cultivating it, and then going into the tracking room and finishing it off. So it comes pretty quick. This last Gov't Mule record, we did 3 songs at Jorgen Carlson's studio in North Hollywood, and Warren was in town for some Grammy nomination for the Allman Brothers, and he had about a week there open, and so we decided to go in the Jorgen studio and start cutting. And that's what we did. We had no idea, nothing preconceived. We went in and we had 3 days, and we came out with 3 songs. And for instance, one song just started with a drum beat. another song, just very organically, just real quick. When we continued recording in Connecticut, Warren came in and some other people came in with some already preconceived songs, which is good. Warren's a songwriter, so he's got tons of them. He decides, we decide which ones will be the best for Gov't Mule. You know, not all the songs really fit in the Gov't Mule category. And Gordy was there. Gordy Johnson, who produced our last 2 records, was there for part of it. And when he's there, he's just like the 5th member of the Mule. You know, he's in an engineer and producer capacity. But he's just one of the guys, and he's not really dictating. You know, what he's doing is trying to bring out the best in us. And when somebody comes in with an already written song, so the tempo is pretty much already established. You know, and or in the middle, we could all of a sudden change it. You know, it could go one way. So it's very open. And but again, I prefer things to go quickly. I'm not a big fan of demoing all these songs unless they're done in kind of a crude way. Let them sit for a while and give them a listen every once in a while and expand on it. You know, but I don't like to be in the studio for that long. We did all this. We recorded 11 songs in probably 2 weeks. They were written and recorded, and then later on people went in to put overdubs on stuff, and then you do a mix and all that. But I keep it simple.
Was it easier doing them because they were Gov't Mule songs already?
Say again?
Was it easier doing them because they were Gov't Mule songs already?
Well, we don't know if they're going to be Gov't Mule songs until they're written and actually recorded, you know.
How many takes did you do on 11?
We never do that, you know, we're not the type of band who does 30 takes, you know. There's a lot of bands through the years, you always hear Pink Floyd, you know, all these takes, you know, and then again, they usually go back, well, I like the first one best, you know, that's the way.
That's so funny.
That's the way it always works. And, you know, Neil Young's always been a big proponent for that, you know. I've read a lot of stuff where he said, you know, the first thoughts are usually the best ones, and the first takes are usually the best ones. They have the best feel, the most natural feel. Thanks. Me, Warren, and Alan never got together. Hook was there. And he was in Southern California at the time. And so he was my cohort on the West Coast. And we've had some amazing experiences. Hook and I went to Moscow, Russia, together. They're still looking for us.
They're not going back?
And
We want to hear
I
that
can't
story.
tell you what an experience that was. We went over there with Tony Gilkison, a great guitar player, and Speedy, bass player from Austin. Yes. And we went over to Russia with no road manager. We had a gig over there. We had 2 weeks over there at like a Texas Roadhouse blues club in Moscow.
It was like a big airplane hangar.
Big airplane hangar. Went over there, no road manager, and you're talking Cossack-looking militia with AK whatever slung on their shoulders. I mean, it was really intimidating.
The airport was intimidating.
Yes, the airport was totally intimidating. Good Lord. What an experience. And from there we went over to Madrid. We were 2 weeks in Madrid. And so Hook and I have done a lot together. And you've lived in Europe.
20 years.
Yeah, 20 years. And you were in Spain for quite a while, right? Yeah. You know, he's very knowledgeable about all the Spanishes.
All the Spanishes.
And their music.
More than we care to get into.
And we want to play some percussion type things, or
You play the percussion.
some clave stuff, or
Play some of that Spanish stuff there. about the cajon.
Well, give us some Spanish.
That's toy box.
There's a triangle in there somewhere.
Pass around?
Yeah.
Sure.
So Matt, while you're getting your stuff out, I had a final question for you.
Yeah. Right.
You were talking over here. Good to see you. Matt, you were talking about first takes. Sometimes being the best. Can you name some first takes that maybe made it on the releases that we would have heard?
I want a hand.
Your favorites made it as a first take.
Good question. At the 11th hour, at the end of the recording session, the song that Elvis Costello is on, we did in 3 takes. We did in the studio all day, 12 hours or so.
Okay, either way.
And I was
Maybe I'd rather have that one.
Everybody was. But I think Warren or whoever was producing, I think Gordy was gone at that time. All right, anybody got one more idea? We got another couple hours left in the studio. And he had shown us a song at the beginning of the recording session, and we didn't get around to it. But I always wanted to put this beat. It's one of the original rock and roll beats in the song. Basically, John Bonham and John Bonham got it.
Little Richard.
Little Richard, exactly. He's a knocker. So I started playing that beat. And he goes, well, that's the beat to that song. And Funny Little Tragedy is called the song. And but I didn't hear that when he originally presented the song to the band. And so we did 3 takes of that song, and we were out of time. So we had to pick the best of what it was. But those were the original thoughts that came. I mean, we could have polished that turd for a long time, but it just wouldn't have made sense. You know, it was the first impression that made it. But that was a representation of that we talked about.